All right, before we get into it, should be painfully obvious to most people that know, but if you don't know, the iS0 is actually a keyboard that I made, and Illuminati Keyboards is my brand. All right, so let's get into the review. Hey guys, I'm Simon. This is my review of the iS0 or iS0 or whatever the hell it's called. Now, the iS0 is a single key keyboard, I guess. It is technically a keyboard, and it is made by Illuminati Keyboards, or just Illuminati. Now, this thing has a typing angle of 7 degrees, and I'd like to call it a nice and unique keyboard. It's got some funky stuff going on that makes it kind of unique. This thing was available for sale August of last year for 69. Bro, are you serious? This thing was $69? Jesus. Okay. So this thing was available for $69, which I think makes it the most expensive per key keyboard ever sold in a public group buy. I guess that makes it unique. All right, let's get in there and take a look at what this thing looks like. All right off the bat, you can tell that this thing is pretty small. It's a small little thingy. Now, I do have to say that this case is a B-stock case. Even though I checked out Illuminati's website and they said that there's no such thing as B-stock. But apparently this one right here is a B-stock because it's got a defect right here that we'll check out when we open it up. Now, in terms of the case exterior, we can see that the top of the case is perfectly flat, and then the bottom of the case creates the entirety of the 7-degree typing angle. It's quite nice. It's got the sloped back that is perfectly flat, which means that when you place it on the desk, it actually comes out a little bit instead of going straight down. Now, in terms of the bezels that we've got here, it looks like we've got 4mm bezels on the side and about 8mm on the top. Not a big fan of this. Let's get up a little closer. Not a big fan of this. It makes it seem as if it has, too much of a pronounced forehead and chin, and not much for the sides. But I guess that has to do with the mounting or something. We'll find out. The bottom of the case here has some interesting stuff going on. There's a large Illuminati eye engraving, which looks quite nice. And these look like standard 8mm bump-ons, except the bottoms are flat. Now, if I recall correctly, the bottoms are flattened because of an issue when using rounded bump-ons. If you were to press it off-center, it would wobble substantially more than this. Now, this is with the flat feet, and it does wobble, but when you press the key, obviously, there is no wobble. It'll only wobble if you're smacking it here and here, but not the top or bottom. So that makes me think if they had gone with, 8mm all the way across, maybe would have resolved this issue, maybe not. We'll see. The corners have a nice little rounding to them. Let's see how close we can get. There we go. Nice little rounding of the corners. I like it. And it looks like all the edges are perfectly round. And there's a small little radius on the internal bit, which kind of helps it flow into the keycap a bit better. From what I can tell, the spacing seems a little wonky, though I'm not sure that has to do with my stabilizer placement. It looks like the amount of space to the right is more than the amount of space to the left, perhaps? And definitely the bottom has a little bit more space than the top. Now, besides this, the anodization matching looks pretty good. Mine's a little dirty. Let's clean it up a little bit. There we go. Anodization matching is pretty good. I mean, it's silver. It's incredibly hard to screw up silver. There might be a reflectivity mismatch. I can see, at least from here, that the bottom seems a little bit more reflective than the top. Now, this is a known issue with a lot of keyboards, where you'll either have a color anodization mismatch or a reflectivity mismatch. And generally, smaller parts like this do tend to be a little bit more reflective. On the back here, we can see what looks like a flush USB-C port. It's not perfectly flush. It is inset a tiny little bit, though this has given me no issues with my connectors. The USB port does sit very, very close to the top of the bottom piece, which might be a little risky of a design aesthetic, but I guess I like it. Now, this was done by Poner of Ion Keyboards. He's the guy that did the Xeno and the Zenith and the the Equinox. But I've heard that he does all of the designs for Illuminati, which is interesting. I quite like the design. It's nice and cute and simple. Though at $69, that's a little bit rough. All right, let's tear this down and take a look at the case internals. Now, one thing I do have to note is that trying to get the cap off is actually incredibly difficult with this keyboard. It's really hard to get an angle that works out. So what I've figured out is you have to grasp it on the bottom and then pull the cap up as you grasp it from the top. And essentially this allows you to grab the bottom right and the top left, and then you are able to just wiggle it out. If you've got terrible stabilizers, like these right here, then if you pull it out any other way, except for the way I just demonstrated, your stabilizers will pop out. That's not a good thing. All right, let's tear it down. Alrighty, we'll start here with the plate. This looks like the default and only plate option that was available, which was the 1.5 millimeter frosted polycarbonate. This attaches to the top case using 4 screws, which is the same amount of screws used to hold the case top and the case bottom together. Now, the polycarbonate plate looks quite nice and feels quite rigid. So if you're familiar with 1.5 millimeter polycarbonate plates, there are a softer variant. This seems to be a stiffer variant. Right here we can see a hole, and if we look down that hole, we can see that there is a reset switch that is accessible from the top. I'm a big fan of this. A lot of people think that this is a really stupid design decision, especially in this day and age when Bootmagic Lite is available on so many keyboards, and with VIA, which this PCB does have, it's not absolutely necessary. Now, speaking of the PCB, we can kind of make out the logos here through the plate. Though if we peek in through the side, we can see 3 logos in there. There's the Ion logo, an Illuminati logo, and what looks like the iS0 3 logo. So in fact, this PCB was made by iS0 3. We can see it here, iS0 3, and also Ion, and also Illuminati. So the 3 forces that came together. This is a pretty large controller for what it is. If I remember correctly, a controller like this can be used for like up to a 60% keyboard. And taking a quick look at what is on the PCB, I mean, we've got a spot for a in-switch LED, which is kind of weird because there's only one button. So you'd have to use the button to turn the LEDs on and off, which then means that's the only thing the button does. But okay, we'll allow it. It looks like there's wiring here to prevent short circuits and ESD. That's quite nice to see in something this small. It looks pretty cute. Obviously, you've got the area to mount your stabilizer, since this only takes a single layout, and that layout is iS0. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this. I would have preferred at least, a plate and PCB option for those, wanting to use ANSI. I understand the reason with going with a fixed plate. It's normally to help the plate feel and the sound profile of the board, but I think an option for ANSI users would have made a lot more sense, especially considering there are so many more ANSI users than iS0 users. Taking a peek, we can see that there's this little tab here, and that little tab actually aligns with a tab in the case bottom to help align the PCB into place a little bit. Now, obviously, the PCB is held to the plate via the switch, which is then meant to be put into the case top, like so. All right, so that should cover the PCB. If I remember correctly, this has VIA support as well as QMK support, obviously. If my sources are right, they say that this actually has N-key rollover, which is, I don't know, quite amazing for what it is, and allows for the full functionality demonstrated in QMK and VIA, which means you can have multiple layers, though, this would be the button to switch the layers, and that's all that would happen, is the layers would be switched. But it technically has that, and yeah, I mean, that's it for the plate and PCB. Let's take a look at the case internals. The case bottom, the machining looks quite well done. Now again, this was a B-stock unit. We'll find that visible issue, but it seems it wasn't on the case bottom. So here we can see 4 little edges. I think these are meant to support the edges of the PCB, while this supports the tab on the PCB. And there are some holes here that don't go all the way through. And what these are actually alignment pillars. Now, this means that you can assemble it. Now, this tends to be an issue, especially with very large boards such as this one, where if you don't have alignment tabs or alignment pillars, then when you screw in one corner, the other corner may be offset, and it's kind of hard to get a nice flush seam all the way across. So I'm glad that that Illuminati went ahead and put alignment pillars in this thing. Although I still think at $69 it's a little bit too expensive, but I'm starting to understand that maybe some of that money went into the design of the keyboard and not so much into prostitutes and hard drugs. All right, right here we can see. Oh, right here we can see what makes this B stock. This looks like it was dropped in the factory, or dropped during the QC phase. I'm not sure exactly what happened here. I was told by Simon of Illuminati Keyboards that he had QC'd all of these himself, so it's very possible he got too drunk and dropped this one. Overall, though, it looks decent. The internal complexity is a lot more than I would have anticipated from something this small. Now, that should be it for the case. We've checked out all of the little design features here, and I think we can move right into a sound test, and then we can go ahead and summarize everything that makes this so special. I hope you enjoyed that sound test. I'm not the biggest fan of the sonic profile of the iS0. I think it sounds okay, but I would have liked to see a few more plate options. Maybe FR4 or brass or depleted uranium, something to give us some options. Now, you know me, and you know that I'm a big advocate of a fair price for keyboards, and how important I think a value proposition is when it comes to keyboards. Now, this thing was $69. That was rather pricey. So I reached out to the guy at Illuminati. I think his name was Simone, and I talked to him about the pricing. And it turns out that he lost like $4,000 on this group buy, which was like $20+ a unit. And I did ask to take a look at his numbers, and I can independently say that yes, he's terrible at business. So yeah, I'm certain that if he had refined his group buy process and knew what he was doing, he could have probably sold this for a little bit less and made a little bit of profit. Now, as a whole, I think this is nice and unique, though of course I would have liked to see it in other layouts. ANSI, obviously, since most everybody does use ANSI. I think a few of the features are maybe unnecessary, especially with the PCB technology. But I guess it's a sign of the times, and keyboards are getting more advanced now, so I guess something like this should have all the features now in 2020. Overall, I think this is pretty good. If I had to give it a score, I'd give it maybe a 3.14 out of 420. But yeah, that's my review of the iS0. One thing to note is apparently these aren't even all shipped yet. The group buy for this was in August of last year, and there's some dude in Taiwan that's supposed to be shipping these, but he's not. And there's like 50 or 60 angry people wondering where theirs are. I think that's not the greatest thing, and I'd be concerned going forward, especially if you are interested in buying things from Illuminati. I mean, sure, I understand that international logistics is kind of hard right now, but other people are shipping just fine. So maybe watch out and make sure that their future keyboards offer a decent value proposition before you go ahead and buy them. Anyway, that's it. That's my review. I'll see you guys in the next one. This thing is pricey. Oh my god, I have the wrong fucking mic on.